longest time, even the best video games were hindered by level structures, invisible walls, and out-of-bounds sections. Cut to 2001, and Grand Theft Auto 3 rewrote the rules on exploration, which popularized open-world titles. Of course, then there are times where games accidentally give players too much freedom. In these cases, they can perform out-of-this-world actions that the developers never intended. Of course, any sandbox property can bug out if the player messes around enough, but in open-world titles, the player can experience some truly game-breaking moments simply by exploring. Even when it's advised not to pursue bugs, it's mighty tempting, especially when it allows players to skip half the content, beat a difficult boss in 2 seconds, or hurl an annoying character into the stratosphere. That said, before deciding to explore these brave new worlds, you should be aware of the dangers. I'm Jess from What Culture, and here are 10 open-world video games you can break by exploring. Number 10. Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Grand Theft Auto Vice City was the first entry in the iconic series that let players purchase businesses, like a strip club, a boatyard, or a weapon shop. However, one establishment that tickled the fancy of many was Cherry Popper's Ice Cream Company. Pretty much everyone marched across town to buy this place when they heard about it, because, who doesn't love a Cornetto or a Mr. Whippy? Sadly, investing in Cherry Poppers is the worst business decision anyone can make. When the PS2 version of Vice City was originally released, there was a technical problem that corrupted the data after saving inside Cherry Poppers. If the player wasn't using multiple save slots when this error occurred, they could lose all their progress. Now, since Cherry Poppers wasn't an essential part of the campaign, the issue could be avoided. But since this calamity wasn't common knowledge at the time, a bunch of players suffered the consequences anyway. This bug may have been patched out, but that hasn't stopped Vice City players getting the jitters every time they pass by the seemingly innocuous Cherry Poppers building. Number 9. Elder Scrolls 4: Oblivion. Since Elder Scrolls 4: Oblivion garnered massive acclaim across all platforms, fans were obviously desperate for more. Because the demand was through the roof, Bethesda could have rushed out a rudimentary expansion pack, and the fans would have eaten it up. But Shivering Isles was anything but a cash grab. In fact, it was arguably the best expansion of the year. Due to its inventive quests and magnificent world to explore, it's no surprise Shivering Isles won a ton of gaming awards. That said, it's possible developers should have spent a little more time tinkering with the DLC before releasing it worldwide. Although Shivering Isles had technical problems here and there, one snafu stood out above the rest. You couldn't beat it. If the player leaves the Isles then returns, Herdir will disappear forever. Because this NPC is crucial to completing the main campaign, his absence rendered the DLC unwinnable. Fortunately, all was not lost. Even before this glaring error was patched, it could be avoided simply by reloading a save state before the Herdir quest began. Nevertheless, it's a little baffling how Bethesda left in a game-breaking bug like this in the first place. Number 8. Hogwarts Legacy. In Hogwarts Legacy's prologue, players should think carefully when choosing their house. Not only will they be designated with their house for the rest of the playthrough, they won't be admitted to the other house's common rooms. Basically, Slytherins can't enter Gryffindor's room, Ravenclaws can't enter Hufflepuff's room, you get it. But this is Harry Potter we're talking about, and when have students of Hogwarts ever followed the rules? Despite how it seems, there's a sneaky method to access any of the common areas. Starting in Irondale, walk to the house with the hanging cloth until the player falls through. After that, summon the broom before heading towards Hogwarts Castle, where the player can access any common room. Although this is a neat trick, it may not seem practical at first. However, being able to explore these rooms lets you be a part of other quest-based locations. The developers have since scrubbed out this bug, which is a shame since it was among the few unintentional features that players enjoyed. Unless Potterheads set up 4 separate save files in different houses, there's no way to enter all 4 rooms freely anymore. Number 7. Far Cry 5. The easiest way to compel most gamers to investigate a spot is to tell them it's off-limits. So when Far Cry 5 players were told that St. Francis Veteran Center was off-limits and inaccessible, they immediately said, yeah, I'm gonna go there. By approaching the entrance, the players will hear the song Only You, causing them to black out before spawning in another area. Far Cry fans attempted to circumvent this region through various unconventional methods, but nothing worked. Over time, it was discovered the building could be accessed through the lake. Once the song started, the player had to wait underwater until they drowned. Instead of returning to the last save point, they found themselves able to roam around the facility without issue. Although there's not much to do here, save for picking up some loot, the glitch was worth exploiting since it rendered the player invincible, so long as they didn't fast travel. Of course, since this glitch was beloved by all, it was eventually patched out. Because why would the developers let gamers have any fun? Although there are still some bugs in Far Cry 5, few are as enjoyable as this one. Number 6. Marvel's Spider-Man. The Insomniac team should be proud of themselves considering how well Marvel's Spider-Man turned out. Due to its fluid combat system, compelling story, luscious graphics, and staggering open-world design, there's no question Insomniac successfully crafted the best Spidey game to date. But this wall-crawling, web-swinging title is not without its flaws. Many gamers experienced all sorts of mishaps while flipping around the city, including syncing issues, lighting inconsistency, and hilarious animation fails. As frustrating as these problems are, they're expected in an open worlder. However, there was one irregularity nobody was ready for. By going out of bounds, especially during the Miles Morales sections, the NPCs may not load properly. Okay, that doesn't sound so bad. Obviously, if the player's somewhere the developers don't expect them to be, things are gonna get messed up a bit. But these NPCs don't just look untextured, they're made of denim jeans. Even their faces turn to denim. Although this glitch should be funny, it's surprisingly creepy. While watching these unanimated jean abominations wandering around without walking animations, it seems like a fever dream. When the NPCs revert to normal, it's more freaky because it feels like the player imagined the whole thing. Number 5. Cyberpunk 2077. Upon Cyberpunk 2077's now infamous launch, it was very easy to stumble across its many bugs. By going anywhere, talking to anyone, or doing pretty much anything, the player was sure to see NPCs freeze, fall through the floor, or transform into eldritch monsters that would make Stephen King quake in his boots. Since CD Projekt Red has patched the sci-fi roleplayer to death, many issues have been resolved, including the deeply amusing invisible katana bug. To perform this maneuver, the player must put away their katana just as they press the menu button. After changing to another melee weapon, V will be holding an invisible katana once the game is resumed. By mashing the attack button, V can hover indefinitely, allowing them to sail through the sky and land on almost any skyscraper. From there, you can go wherever you want, often with disastrous but hilarious results. Even though gamers were relieved when the developers remedied Cyberpunk's avalanche of technical problems, this is one many people wish was left in. I mean, who doesn't want to wiggle an invisible sword around to soar through Night City like Superman? Number 4. Elden Ring. Even though Elden Ring was absolutely hyped like crazy, Hidetaka Miyazaki's magnum opus absolutely exceeded everybody's expectations. Although 2022 was a towering year for gaming, Elden Ring confidently sat at the top. Nevertheless, From Software's greatest achievement isn't immune to a bug or two. Ironically, one of the easiest glitches to exploit revolves around the game's defining feature, the brutal boss battles. So, which bosses are bugged? Possibly all of them. You see, these ruthless adversaries only recognize the player after they pass through the arena's fog door. If the player finds another entryway, the boss won't attack, making the fight terribly one-sided. However, this is merely one way to turn a boss fight in this game into easy pickings. By tricking Radahn into climbing a hill, he'll tumble to his death without triggering the second phase of the battle. The fire giant can be vanquished with a similar technique. If the player quits after reaching an out-of-bounds point in a boss room, the enemy won't attack when the save state is reloaded. This trick works on Mog, Loretta, and, would you believe it, even the living nightmare herself, Melania. Number 3. Saints Row 2. Saints Row 2 proved its predecessor wasn't just a fluke. Due to the sequel's interactive open-world map, diverse customization options, action-packed combat, fab voice acting, and on-point humor, it was obvious that this was a franchise in the making, until the dreadful remake. But for all of Saints Row 2's strength, it's infamous for having one of the worst glitches in gaming. By activating certain cheats in the Zombie Uprising minigame, the player can knock themselves out of the map. After that, things get a little bit, well, apocalyptic. Debris flies around, interiors turn invisible, and the sky takes on a rapture-like glow. But the next part of this bug is so freaky, it genuinely sounds like a creepypasta. If the player performs this maneuver repeatedly, they'll eventually encounter the dreaded freezer. The freezer is a shadowy NPC that appears randomly inside a wall. Once the player encounters him, it's game over. Not figuratively, it's literally game over, the game breaks. The freezer doesn't just wipe the save file, it renders the disk unplayable. As such, this is one game-breaking glitch that's 100% not worth checking out, not even out of curiosity. Number 2. Sonic Frontiers. Glitches are so rampant in 3D Sonic titles, it's easy to mistake them as intentional features. Sonic Frontiers is no different, since the player can shatter the gameplay by exploiting certain mechanics, such as rail launching, homing dash, and wing bounce. Then there's the out-of-bounds glitches. Taking a photo in Ares Island's underground will make the game go kaput. By messing around with the Psyloop move during Battle Rush on Kronos Island, Sonic can clip through the ground, which can muffle the sound, mute the music, or kill our wisecracking hero. However, the super launch takes game-breaking to a whole new level, literally. After Sonic locks onto an enemy, he needs to perform a dodge, followed immediately by a stomp attack. If Sonic activates Air Boost just before the stomp lands, the titular hedgehog will catapult into the stratosphere. By maneuvering Sonic before he lands, he can reach regions far earlier than he should have been able to. As a result, this trick is very popular in the speedrunning community. But it's not all fine and dandy. Sometimes you'll land in an area you're really not supposed to be, causing the game to crash. Number 1. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Because Breath of the Wild was a free-for-all for glitch-exploiting speedrunners, Nintendo tried extra hard to ensure the follow-up wouldn't suffer the same issue. But Tears of the Kingdom offers up so very much freedom that it's easier than ever to break the game. Bows, shields, weapons, and material can be endlessly duplicated. Even though the developers devised a patch to remedy the issue, sneaky players learned how to work around it almost immediately. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. By attaching walls and planks around an NPC, Link can trap them in a box and hurl them away, often to places the character was never intended to enter. Using recoil on an object falling from the sky while standing on it will cause Link to be launched miles into the air. Once the player masters rockets, fans, and batteries, Link can turn almost anything into a vehicle. Just as a reminder, Tears of the Kingdom came out in May. Within weeks, players figured out how to earn 1,000,000 rupees in an hour and surf across Hyrule on a plank of wood. With that in mind, we can only imagine what features are going to be discovered as the months wear on. That's the end of our list, but let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other examples of open world games that can be broken simply by exploring. As always, I've been Jess from What Culture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm @JessMcDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more great gaming lists.